Hello guys, welcome back to Billy's Recap. Today I'm going to show you an action horror movie called Anaconda. Somewhere on the Amazon River, an illegal hunter on his boat appears to be trying to call for help on the radio, but there is no response on the other end. While he tries to make the radio work, the boat suddenly starts to shake, followed by the floorboards coming loose. He runs to the upper deck, apparently fleeing from an unknown creature. Full of fear and frustration, he ends his own life rather than letting whatever is behind him catch up to him. The scene shifts to a jungle hotel, where a woman named Terry is busy with her laptop. While she is working, she hears a knock on the door and goes to check who it is. At the door, she finds the anthropologist Professor Steven, someone who will join her on her next project. He shows her a map of where they can reach their target for the project they are working on. They start talking, and Terry notices that Steven looks like a mess. She asks why he is in such a state, and Steven says he had a battle with piranhas. The next morning, Terry meets the rest of the film crew. Danny, her childhood friend, is among them, and then Westridge the narrator arrives. Also present is the boat captain, Mateo, the production manager Denise, and her boyfriend Gary, the sound engineer. Everyone is ready for the trip to find and film a documentary about the Shirashama, a long-lost Amazonian indigenous tribe. When Mateo signals that they are ready to depart, Steven asks everyone to test their equipment and ensure they have their insect repellent before signaling to Mateo that the adventure begins. Navigating 1,000 miles from the mouth of the Amazon to find the Shirashamas, one of the last great mysteries of the rainforest. Not long after, it starts to rain, but the filming of the jungle continues. Soon after, the crew hears someone yelling for help from a boat ahead. Danny informs them that there is a man trapped on the boat, so Steven orders Mateo to pull up alongside the boat. They help the man onto their boat, but Steven tells him they cannot take him back to the coast as they are heading upriver. The man then tells Steven they can drop him off at the next village, where the people can help him fix his boat. He also apologizes for causing trouble, but Steven says it's fine and asks Mateo to keep the boat moving. However, Mateo seems to look at the new passengers suspiciously before continuing to move the boat. The next morning, the man introduces himself as Paul Cerrone from Paraguay. He claims to have studied to become a priest and decided he needed to see the real world. Ending up in the jungle, where he seemed to fit in. When the crew asks what his vocation is now, Paul says it is snakes. He claims to capture them for zoos and collectors, which is obviously known as illegal hunting, but Paul denies it. He asks the crew what they are looking for, and Steven says they are just making a documentary about the Shirashama. Paul seems to know about the tribe members, so he offers to show them the tribe as a way of thanking them for saving his life. The next morning, Terry approaches Paul to ask how long it takes to reach the tribe, and Paul says it is not far from where they are now. He then starts narrating a story he claims is a legend of the Shirashama, but Steven disagrees, saying it is a legend from a different tribe. Paul then assures them to follow his directions as he claims to know the region well, but Steven says he locates tribes for a living and therefore knows what he is doing. He then tells Mateo to take them in the direction he said while Terry starts filming with Westridge and the rest. Paul then interrupts the filming and says to leave him at the next village if they don't trust him. Later that night, Gary and Denise inform Terry that they are going out to capture sounds of the jungle. Terry then tells them to be careful before they leave the boat. Meanwhile, Gary and Denise are busy recording the sounds of the jungle when Denise suddenly notices they are alone. They start kissing, but they don't know that something seems to be watching them. Denise notices this and tells Gary to be quiet. Immediately, the pair are chased by a creature they don't have time to see, but Paul appears with a gun. Back on the boat, Steven hears a gunshot and quickly grabs a weapon. The rest of the crew, who also heard the shot, joins Steven. Mateo shines a light, revealing Gary and Denise returning with Paul, who is busy dragging a huge boar. Gary explains to Steven that Paul saved them from being attacked by the boar, and Steven cleverly tells everyone to stay on the boat for the night. The next day, the boat gets stuck on something in the water. Steven offers to take care of it while the rest of the crew waits. Steven gears up and dives to remove the problem. While he is working, it seems like something attacks him, and suddenly struggle to breathe. Denise immediately realizes something is wrong and starts calling the others. Danny and Gary then jump in to help Steven, bringing him back to the boat. Terry is worried that he is not breathing anymore. Mateo then tells her that there is something in Steven's mouth, and upon opening Steven's mouth, they find a huge wasp inside. Steven is still not breathing, so Paul performs an emergency surgical procedure to help him breathe, which works to everyone's surprise. Later, after the girls put Steven to bed, Terry tells everyone that he is fine now and that they should move on, but Danny informs them that the radio is down. Meanwhile, Paul has removed what was holding the boat, and Mateo tells them he cannot fix the radio. Paul then suggests they take Steven to the hospital if they don't want him to die. He then suggests a route for them, which ends up being the same one he suggested the previous day. However, Danny doesn't trust him and whispers to Terry, hoping she knows what she is doing, but Terry has no choice, so they are forced to follow Paul's route. Moments after following the route for a few miles, the crew encounters a blockade made of wood, blocking the passage. Paul then tells them they have nothing to worry about. He takes some explosives and asks Gary to help him set them up. During the process, Gary notices something in the water and informs Paul about it. Paul then agrees that there is indeed something in the water. After setting up the explosives, the two return to the boat and watch the barrier explode. Unfortunately, the explosion causes some pieces of wood to fall towards them and knock over the rest of the fuel they have, not to mention dozens of small snakes covers the boat due to the explosion. The crew is scared, but Paul says they are just babies and starts throwing them back into the water. Westridge accuses Paul of being aware that there were snakes there, but Paul says it was just a pleasant surprise. Little do they know, Paul has bad intentions, and Terry suspects Paul is hiding something. Later, Paul takes them to an abandoned boat belonging to the illegal hunter from the beginning of the film. He claims the boat would have fuel. He takes Danny and Mateo with him to search the wreckage. Inside, Paul finds an old newspaper revealing that he, Mateo and the illegal hunter were actually working together to capture animals, especially snakes. He takes the newspaper and hides the evidence immediately. After searching the boat, Danny and Paul return to their boat. While Mateo falls into the water and is attacked by a giant male anaconda measuring 7 meters. Unfortunately, the others are unaware of Mateo's tragic fate. Danny goes back to look for him but can only find Mateo's flashlight. Paul then reveals to them that there is an anaconda in the waters and that in any case, Mateo has been gone for a long time. He then finally reveals that he is actually after the anaconda, which he believes can fetch a lot of money. However, Terry strongly believes that Mateo is still alive and suggests they let the boat float until morning in case Mateo returns. That night, Gary is tricked by Paul into believing they can make a lot of money by capturing the anaconda, so he decides to help Paul. The next day, Paul kills a monkey to be used as bait. He then gets into a brief argument with Terry, who stands her ground, saying they are not capturing any anaconda on her boat. That's when Gary turns against them, saying they could all cooperate and help film Paul capturing the anaconda, which Paul claims will fetch millions of dollars. Gary also says Paul promised to get them out of the Amazon alive if they help and capture the snake. Danny thinks the two are crazy and threatens to push them into the river, but Paul does something even bigger. He threatens by shooting close to Danny as a warning. With that, Paul finally takes control of the boat, forcing everyone to do as he says. That night, Paul attempts to capture the anaconda using the monkey as bait, but the anaconda attacks the entire crew. Danny is knocked down by the anaconda while Westridge narrowly escapes death. The snake goes after Terry, but Paul hits it with a tranquilizer, causing the snake to become erratic. This also causes Denise to fall into the water. Gary then jumps in after her to help. Fortunately, they manage to get back on the boat before the snake reaches them. Suddenly, the snake wraps around Gary and starts crushing him to Denise's despair. Terry tries to shoot the snake, but Paul grabs the gun, saying the snake won't fetch money if it's dead. The snake then devours Gary, leaving Denise desolate and in tears for losing her lover before her eyes. Seeing things spiraling out of control, Terry, Danny, and Westridge devise a plan. Terry approaches Paul and tries to seduce him so Danny can knock him out. Unfortunately, Paul sees through the plan and counterattacks. And when Paul lets his guard down, Westridge hits him twice on the back of the head, and they manage to overpower Paul. The next day, Terry confronts Paul, saying she now knows it was all a big setup, from finding Paul on a wrecked boat to Mateo when they route to the hospital. Paul then reminds her of the wasp he placed in Steven to knock him out. Infuriated by this, Terry punches him. Meanwhile, Westridge is giving navigation lessons to Danny when Terry joins them. The two men then start anticipating the return to the peace of their homes and away from this anaconda madness. Shortly after, they get stuck in a waterfall. Westridge instructs Danny on what to do to free the boat, but nothing works. Danny suggests the three of them get into the water to free the boat. While they are doing this, Denise confronts Paul with a knife, attempting to kill him and avenge Gary's death, but she is too slow, and Paul finds a way to strangle her with his legs before throwing her body into the water. He then takes the knife and starts using it to free himself. Meanwhile, the Anaconda is back and is after Danny and Terry. Westridge then distracts the snake long enough for Terry and Danny to get back on the boat. As the Anaconda goes after Westridge, he swims to the waterfall. Meanwhile, Paul finally frees himself and attacks Danny. Terry tries to help but is knocked down. Paul then stabs Danny in the leg while Terry tries to aim at Paul without shooting Danny. At that moment, Westridge is grabbed by the snake at the top of a tree that falls towards the boat, causing the entire crew to jump into the water. During the confusion, Stephen wakes up and comes out to see what's happening. Meanwhile, Terry realizes that Westridge was killed during the attack and quickly swims back to the boat. Danny, however, is too slow due to the leg injury. Finally reaching the boat, the duo realizes that Denise is also gone. Terry tries to help Danny up, but the snake immediately wraps around him. Terry quickly finds a gun and shoots the snake in the head several times, causing it to release Danny. Paul is furious that Terry killed the snake and attacks her, pointing a gun at Danny. But before he can do anything, Stephen stabs him in the back with the reptile tranquilizer. Paul grabs Stephen by the neck and tightens the wound, but with the tranquilizer taking effect, Danny takes the opportunity and throws him into the water. Terry and Danny then help Stephen back to bed, and he immediately passes out again. As they continue their journey, Danny and Terry find an abandoned dock. Danny tells Terry they might find fuel there, so Terry accompanies him to check. Unfortunately, they find Paul, who managed to reach them. He takes them hostage and uses them as bait to capture a much larger female anaconda, about 12 meters long. His plan works, with the snake wrapping around the duo and slowly suffocating them. Paul then tries to capture it using a net, but it breaks free and mercilessly attacks him. As the snake swallows Paul, Terry and Danny try to escape. But the snake pursues them. Terry finds herself in a building with a nest full of baby anacondas. The snake then captures her there and vomits a partially digested Paul before chasing her up the chimney. Danny, on the other hand, pins the snake with a pickaxe and tells Terry to climb out the top while he sets fire to the fuel at the base to blow everything up. Terry climbs out just in time, and then the explosion sends the flaming anaconda into the water while Terry and Danny regroup at the dock. But the anaconda refuses to give up and tries to attack them again, but Danny finishes it off with an axe to the head. Later, the duo returns to the boat to find Stephen, who was slowly recovering. As they navigate the river, they finally locate the Shirashama tribe, the reason they came to this place. Terry then asks Danny to grab her camera and start filming. Later, we see the boat navigating the Amazon with Danny, Terry, and Stephen as the last survivors. This is the end. Make sure to like and subscribe and also turn on notifications for future videos. See you next time.